All right, so this next segment's going to be kind of controversial because I got a lot of stuff to say about it. And per usual, when I have to get into some controversial stuff, I'm casting a wide net. And if you know I'm not talking about you, I'm not talking about you. I feel like that's the best way to kind of put a parental advisory, so to say, on these conversations. But if I am talking about you, and you feel like I'm talking about you, I probably am. So I watched the Black Twitter documentary on Hulu yesterday. And I mean, I'm somewhat surprised, but not really. It just how comfortable so many black folks have become with just being openly racist and full of righteous indignation. And these are the same people, and I'm particularly talking about the people that were on this documentary. And I don't know their names. They're just random hashtag Black Twitter users that they felt started important hashtags, helped start the Black Twitter movement. And they sit here and it's just like a lot of these guys like in Woke Jackson, as I call them. These guys reminded me of, it's the black, angry Gen X crowd that I keep talking about. It's exactly who this is. I'm going to have to go make another video after this today and point this out. It's no different than your Brad Franklin's here locally, a.k.a. Kamikaze. It's no different than Fat Melvin that works for the mayor. All these guys I've been kind of, for lack of a better term, beefing with since I got into media. They think they can call out any resistance to their narrative racism. And if you don't 100% go along to get along, you're a racist. And too many of you white guys out there are scared of being called a racist. And that's what's got us into this mess. Because you're scared of publicly disagreeing or publicly telling these fools they wrong. That what you're doing is wrong. But y'all won't tell them this. Because worst thing you can be called is a racist. Or you can say, look them dead in the eye when they call you racist. And you can say one or two things. So, or okay, prove it. Call them on the carpet. Make them tell you what's racist about constructive criticism. They can't do it. I've been arguing with these fools for a week. In particular, some strange drag queen from Jackson on Twitter, white drag queen from Twitter in Jackson. Anyway, and she just, whatever it is, just keeps going back to accusing me of being in the KKK. I'm like, I don't think our argument is a race argument here. I'm telling you, you're a trans nut job. I don't know how this translates into me being in the KKK, but neither here nor there. Let's see here. So they brag about inventing cancel culture on this thing. And it just gets me to thinking, like, that's how you really have to fight fire with these people, man. You really, really do. For me, Black Twitter is award show Twitter. It was all NBA Twitter. It was always fun back in the day. I'm talking about the late 2010s, not the late 2010s, it'd been the early 2010s, 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, in that era. Especially like when LeBron James and them were actually good and he was with the Heat and all that. It was fun to watch all that on Twitter because I used to actually kind of like the NBA. I can't watch it. I hate basketball, period, now. If they never dribbled another ball, the world would be better off. If we could convince most of these kids they are not going to be pro basketball players or rappers, the world would be a much better place. If we just took those two things off the board and said you're going to have to find something else to put your hopes and dreams on, you probably ain't going to be a basketball player, son. Anybody can be a rapper, but don't mean you can be a good one. Anybody can host a talk radio show, but it don't mean you're a good one. I know somebody out there saying that right now. But so let me say it for you. My Eminem 8 Mile moment. Anyway, that's what Black Twitter was to me. It was a place where it was funny. They said crazy things. There was a lot of funny memes and GIFs and all this stuff. And then this is going through their timeline here. Then Trayvon Martin happened. And I know that some of my black friends out there and me disagree on this. I know Sean disagrees with me on this. And I've got, I keep saying I need to go back and watch this with a fresh set of eyes. But I still think at minimum Trayvon put himself in a bad situation. I don't believe the media spin on it. George Zimmerman couldn't be a more unlikable individual at the same time. But I still don't think he was guilty. I still think that it was self-defense. Once that fight started, that dude ended up on top of him. He did what he had to do. But that's I don't want to get into that today. But that's where it started there. That's where the quote-unquote rise of Black Twitter. started, according to this documentary, was Trayvon Martin. Because for a while, Trayvon's mom kept calling into a radio show and talking about they killed her son. This guy killed her son. So Black Twitter, it kind of gets to rolling in Florida, and it spreads and it spreads and it spreads. And next thing you know, Obama makes the Trayvon, if I had a son, it would look like Trayvon comments. And, so they got their pound of flesh, so to say. Even though Zimmerman was found innocent, Black Twitter hangs its hat on the fact that they believe they helped create that monster. They helped bring him to trial. Well, you fast forward a little bit. Of course, they take credit for Occupy Wall Street. I don't know how Black Twitter thinks it took credit for Occupy Wall Street, but neither here nor there. Let's fast forward to Black Lives Matter. And throughout all this, man, it's just this righteous indignation. It's very anti-white. It's very racist watching the thing. I mean, legitimately racist. Real racisms. The way they talk about white people throughout this whole thing. Now, they'll call me a racist for pointing this out. That's fine. They've called me a racist so many times, I've lost track of how many times and who all said it. I don't care anymore. I know what's true. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to. I'm not here to sell you on what I am and ain't. So they get to the Black Lives Matter stuff, and they treat it like it is the modern day civil rights movement. It's comical. I'm like, okay, they're at least going to show all the riots and looting and the mostly peaceful protests, right? They're going to take credit for all that too. You can't take credit for the good and then not take credit for the bad. They glossed right over the entire summer of love in 2020. And they took it from George Floyd. And of course, they blamed George Floyd's death on white folks and Donald Trump. They took it straight from that to how, and look, I'm telling you, and this is why I come at Black Democrats so hard. They still to this day brag about and take credit for Joe Biden being in office. Like that, they've hung their hat on, we did this. We got that evil, dastardly Donald Trump out of office. And I'm saying all this pretending that election wasn't stolen. We know it was, but just for the sake of arguing here, saying all that with a big caveat is that they didn't do crap because that election was stolen. Now, they helped steal it. That they did. They helped steal it, especially in Georgia and Michigan. But they so proudly pretend that they helped get Trump out of office, that they somehow saved the world by eliminating Trump from office and getting Joe Biden in there. Well, I'm just looking at 4 years later what a mess everything is. And let me back up a little bit. And they take it straight from there to look at how pissed off these white people are. Excuse my language. And they show all the worst scenes from January 6th. They treat January 6th like it was Pearl Harbor and a bunch of angry, racist white people trying to undo what black people had done to save America. It was absolutely disgusting. And they glossed right over the entire Black Lives Matter summer of love and destruction. That's the media that's out there. I don't know what I expected. I mean, I guess it's part of me. I just like to affirm. Like sometimes I think, Claire, you're being too hard. Do you live online a little too much? It's not really like that out there. That's just a few select nut jobs. And then I watch stuff like this and it reaffirms why I fight this fight. There's a big group of people out there that we've done a lot for that hate us. There's no way you can watch this and not start side-eyeing some folks. But man, do you really think like that about me? About all that we've done? About all that our generation has done? I mentioned this in my Black Gen X video. Gen Xers, black and white, did a whole lot to put the racist past in the past. Now, I can't vouch for rural Mississippi and backwoods justice and all this stuff that, these documentaries and Hollywood likes to portray every person that lives outside the city limits of Jackson as some kind of inbred Ku Klux Klan racist. But I can speak on how I grew up in Jackson for 43 years. It was never somebody in a white robe that I had to worry about clubbing me upside the head. Our generation did more to eliminate racism than any other generation previously. We were integrated. We stayed at each other's houses. White folks had posters of black people on their walls. Black music, black culture. I could go on and on about the culture stuff. We worked together. We went to school together. Lived together. Played together. Partied together. Everything. played sports together, rarely if ever talked about race stuff. And then somehow that same group of blacks, the Gen Xers, grew up and got angry. And I've yet to figure out what you're so angry about. We grew up identical. You had every opportunity and frankly more than I got because you're black. You had more education opportunities, more employment opportunities. I'm trying to figure out why you're mad. Let's take a break. This is the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back. So I want to read a text on the Guns and Gear text line. By the way, 769-241-1944 if you want to chime in this morning. Would love to hear from you. Agree? Disagree? Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me some of your experiences. Mazda of Jackson phone line, 601-879-0002. I mean, look, man, we got to have these tough conversations. We're never going to get past this era that we're stuck in, where everybody's just pointing at each other and calling each other racist because we disagree. We're never going to get past this if we don't start having tough conversations. That's what I was told we had to do by a very prominent local Democrat. And what he meant was, Clay, we just need all y'all to admit y'all are racist and let's go on to the next phase. Well, I'm not going to do that. But I'm willing to have some tough conversations, and that's what we're doing this morning. Tough conversations. If you're a detractor and you can hold your anger in and come here and have a professional conversation without cussing, without stomping and throwing a hissy fit, open invitation to just about anybody. There's a few people I have no interest in talking to, but you're welcome to come on here. I mean, I've never been disrespectful to a single guest. I'm not going to start now. But bring your A game. Bring your facts. I don't care about your feelings. Bring your facts, and let's talk. But I want to read a text or two on the Guns and Gear text line. By the way, the red lights are out again at Ridgewood and Lakeland, so be careful. There's no officers directing traffic either. Appears to be the honor system. You can imagine that's going well. Westbound lane coming into Jackson backed up really bad. So avoid the intersection of Ridgewood and Lakeland this morning if you can. Spook text in and says, you are correct. It's sad that as a black man, I have to guard the conversation I have with my family members. If you're a black and you go against the grain, you are seen as a sellout when you're only trying to better your life and environment. It's as if living in crime-ridden cities are a rite of passage. Just wanted to chime in as a black man that doesn't fit the culture narrative. I love that we got some black folks that listen to this show and are willing to have tough conversations with us. I love when I meet you guys when I'm out and about. To me, that's worth all the swords, the arrows, the bullets I take doing this. It's getting to actually reach people and have real conversations with people who aren't afraid to say, you know what, I don't agree with everything you say, but you're right on this. And I appreciate that. This just goes back to this white flight conversation. Why are we expected to just stick around when things have gone to hell? I don't expect you to. I mean, seriously. It's not racist to not want to be around crime-ridden, violent people. It doesn't matter what race they are. They just so happen to, the majority just so happens to be black in Jackson, but that's nobody's fault. But it doesn't change that people don't want to be around that nonsense. I love living around black folks. I don't want to live around violent criminals, white or black or Hispanic or Chinese. Never met a violent Chinese person in America, by the way. Their family structure here ain't about that. They don't allow that nonsense. They do not allow that here. But my point being, kind of getting off track there, back to the white flight thing. The first, you'll call us racist constantly for wanting to get out of these bad areas where we're just tax slaves for DEI purposes. We're Chokwe's tax slaves in Jackson. All the focus and energy and income in Jackson, all the money goes to funding this free the land nonsense. They can't even keep the red lights working. What are they doing with your tax money? You're tax slaves, and you're getting nothing in return for it. But the first thing you cats do when you get any money is move exactly where the white people went to. And that's fine. Just leave your Jackson nonsense in Jackson. I had to leave mine when I moved. That was part of the deal. I had to leave my Jackson nonsense in Jackson. You got to check that at the door. The shooting in Flowood a few weeks ago. They didn't leave or Brandon, whatever you want to call that little reservoir area. I just call it Flowood. It may be the county of Brandon. 047. I'm not going to get caught up in semantics here. They didn't leave their Jackson nonsense in Jackson. They had moved out to Jackson about 2 years prior. One son comes back into Jackson and gets killed. Another son, allegedly trying to steal a gun that he's buying from a guy and gets killed. They didn't leave Jackson in Jackson. That's just a hard reality that people have to accept. If you're going to get up out all that, as folks like to say, you got to leave that there. I got to take a break. I've run over. We'll be right back.